It is part of the tributary system of the mighty Saskatchewan River, which sprawls across the plains of Western Canada like a great fallen tree, with its branches and twigs caught among the crags and spires of the Rockies. It is one of the smaller rivers that hungrily collect the waters from melting snowfields and glaciers, and in turn feed them to the main stream. It has roared and rumbled and murmured sleepily in moods revolving with the seasons for many thousands of years, while countless hordes of living things drank of its life-giving wetness, waded and swam in it, and sometimes drowned in its flood. It has been there since the huge masses of the Ice Age began to retreat and the Great Plains began to green up after millenniums of frozen silence. Andy Russell. The westward push of European settlement and Canada's agricultural frontier into Alberta in the late 19th century offered early signs that public lands, also known as Crown lands, would be an arena for conflict. Different answers were given to a fundamental question: what priority should different uses have on Crown lands? Conflicts then, conflicts now, center on activities and the values they express. When settlers reached Alberta's foothills in the late 19th century, they saw the carpet of forest stretching out before them as an obstacle. They wanted government to let them cut down the trees, to convert forests into farmland. The federal government controlled public lands in Alberta then, and rejected the settlers' demands when it passed the Dominion Forest Reserves Act of 1906. This law reserved Alberta's forested lands. Reserved meant the lands could not be settled. It also set 3 goals for public land management on these reserves: a permanent supply of timber, a continuous water supply, and protecting the reserve's wildlife and fish populations. It may have been no accident that timber values were at the top of the list. In 1930, the provincial government secured jurisdiction over most Crown lands in Alberta. In 1948, the Social Credit government divided the province into 2 zones, the Green Area and the White Area. This regulation, like the 1906 federal law, decreed that provincial lands in the so-called Green Area could not be settled. It wanted, in the words of the provincial regulation, to prevent settlement and indiscriminate squatting. The Green Area claims roughly 58% of Alberta. It includes most of the northern part of the province, as well as the Rocky Mountains and their foothills. Virtually all of the lands in the Green Area are public lands. They are not the private property of individuals or corporations, but government may grant dispositions or usage rights on these lands to individuals. The White Area is the settled portion of the province. It claims the remaining 42% of Alberta. Here, private property is the norm, but public lands figure importantly in the White Area as well. 25% of the White Area are public lands. Often, individuals will lease these lands for private pursuits and profit. Cattle grazing is especially important in the White Area. 5 million acres in Alberta are allotted for this economic activity. Cattle grazing joins forestry and petroleum as an important business encouraged on public lands in the Green Area. 2 million acres of land in the central and southern foothills of the Alberta Rockies are set aside as lands where cattle may be grazed in the summers. Government bowed to the demands of industry when it created the Green Area in 1948. The regulation that set this area aside made no mention of the water or wildlife goals established in the 1906 federal legislation. New threats have emerged since the 1950s to the health of our headwaters and watersheds. Who in the 1950s predicted the birth of the off-highway vehicle industry, or predicted that government would allow off-highway vehicle use to become another threat to the quality of watersheds and the integrity of aquatic and terrestrial habitats alike? Today's Albertans, as well as future generations who will call this province home, would do well to remember the counsel of Major General Howard Kennedy, the first chair of the Eastern Rockies Forest Conservation Board. In the early 1960s, he said, "It will be stressed emphatically and often that the forests on the reserve belong to the people, and that it is their duty to protect them as well as to see that they are wisely used." Alberta Wilderness Association wants to stress that it's commonsensical, not radical, to give greater credence in legislation and policy to the ideas of our forefathers and foremothers. It's appropriate now, essential in fact, to revisit the values Albertans thought should guide public lands management 30, 60, or 100 years ago,